All right, let's cut that short. Hatman Straps back, Daily Boxing News. How we doing, people? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Shout out to everybody in the live chat. Big up Mr. Luca early. He says, Johnson sparks Partridge, no Usyk 3. Big up J Manchester. Ryan, Truth Channel, Glum Coyote says, is it fake news? Well, we'll have to wait and find out. But this is what Gareth A. Davies said on the TalkSport live stream on the TalkSport Boxing YouTube channel on Saturday when he was commentating, should I say, on the Jazza Dickens Anthony Kakachi fight, or after it. Custom build driving in the place, Anthony YouTube. We got User, we got Martin Colton, Rich Franklin, big up Julius. Hannibal Beats, big up, big up. We got Atizaz, Striker, Connor Williams, Hyro Protagonist, Stu the Q, David Fisher. We got Yeshura, is that how you pronounce your name? President Brush. Will Val, Yems, big up Yems. Milan, David, Brad, Dave, big up, big up. Shout out to everybody. Locking in. So let me just get it up on screen here, right off the bat. This is the video, which you can find on the TalkSport Boxing YouTube channel, where Gareth A. Davies explicitly says that Anthony Joshua versus Tyson Fury is signed. Now, he's pulled up a few seconds after he says this. He says, by Adam Catcher, I think it is, and he asks Gareth A. Davies to clarify, is it signed or just agreed? And Gareth A. Davies backtracks a little bit and says, it's agreed. But the first thing he said is that it's signed. Then he said, oh, well, there's an agreement in place. And he said he heard it from a very credible, reliable source behind the scenes, and that the fight will be on Netflix. He keeps reiterating this. He's been saying this for at least, the past 2 months? That when AJ Fury happens, it will be on Netflix. Now, I saw somebody in the live chat say there that they read on Twitter that Anthony Joshua was going to be fighting Dylan White, and that's done. I'm not sure where they heard that. But unless it's coming from an official source or a reliable journalist, then I take that with a grain of salt. If Anthony Joshua does fight, because Eddie Hearn is saying Anthony Joshua is going to fight in summer before a Partridge fight. We got James Clifford for the super chat. He says, have a great live, Hatman and folks. We'll catch the replay as it's a date night. Hey, big up James Clifford. He's on a date night. Big up. And much good fortune to you. I hope you get what you're looking for. User says it says on Boxing King Media. Okay. We shall see. But yeah, basically Eddie Hearn has indicated that Anthony Joshua will fight in the summer. And he'll look to fight Tyson Fury at the back end of this year. And I've said in previous videos, if he's going to take a summer fight, a tune-up, and look, if AJ hadn't had that terrible crash, I might not be advising any kind of tune-up. But because he had that terrible crash, you don't know how he's going to react psychologically. You don't know how he's going to react neurologically to being hit. Some people can get PTSD in the middle of a fight if they've had a car crash or something like that. So you do just want to get him out in some kind of fight, see if he's okay before then proceeding to the Luke Partridge fight. So I get it. But if you do that, you need to put him in there against somebody that is not going to really test him. Does Dylan White fit the bill? I mean, based off the Atama fight, you would think so, but AJ hasn't been in scintillating form himself, has he? He got destroyed by Daniel Dubois 2 fights back. So, I don't know. Personally, if I was managing AJ, I wouldn't be putting him in against anyone above journeyman level before the Partridge fight. But that's just me. I think AJ is so vulnerable at this stage that it's an unnecessary risk to do that. Be that as it may, what I find very interesting is that Luke Partridge has waited this long to actually get serious about an Anthony Joshua fight. And I find it interesting because AJ's looked vulnerable for so many years. Even as champion, even before he got stopped by Andy Ruiz, he looked vulnerable to me in the Povetkin fight. But with the exception of that period where they were both champions before AJ lost to Usyk, and actually after AJ lost the second fight to Usyk, Partridge has never made any serious attempt, at least from the outside looking in, to make that fight. What's the issue? Isn't AJ vulnerable enough? Well, it appears now, after being flattened by Daniel Dubois, going through a horrendous car accident, now, finally, Partridge thinks AJ's diminished enough to actually risk getting in the ring with him. And I've gone on record over the past few years to say that I would pick Partridge to beat AJ. But evidently, Partridge ain't as confident in that result as I am. If he was, he would have taken the fight long before now. Big up James Clifford once again. Brad says, we'll see what Fury looks like against Makhmudov, but you'd imagine Fury would smash AJ to bits if they fought tomorrow. Look, I'm not saying that Partridge isn't physically diminished. I think he is. But he doesn't appear to be as mentally diminished as Anthony Joshua. And I don't think AJ's ever been as mentally strong as Partridge. So he was at a disadvantage from the beginning, even at his prime. Big up, where's Carlos? Big up, Jay. Brad says Dave Allen would beat White now. Afro Jam says Fury has been vulnerable himself. The Wilder fights took something out of him, which resulted in serious cherry picking. Yeah, I mentioned that, David Gold, that Gad corrected himself. Well, actually, he was corrected by, I think, Adam Cattrall, who pulled him up and said, do you mean signed or do you mean agreed? And Gad said, oh yeah, well, agreed, rather than signed. But he says he has it on good authority from a very good, reliable source. We'll see, right? What's good, Arco? Stu the Q, Striker. Yem says there was interesting news on Jared Anderson today. Is that right? I haven't heard the news. What is it? What's the news on Jared Anderson? Striker says these two should have fought twice already by now. Completely agree. What? Shout out to Charlene. Jared Anderson's going to sign a co-promotional deal with Queensberry? So does that mean that Queensberry are venturing into the American market? Or does that mean that Anderson's looking to fight in the UK? Like, what are the implications of that, if that's accurate? That's a surprising link-up. I mean, to some extent, it's not surprising that Anderson would be looking for a co-promotional deal or a different promoter, because right now, Top Rank don't have a TV deal. But doing a co-promotional thing with Queensberry is a little surprising. Okay. Yem says he's looking to fight in the UK. I'll have to look this up. Very interesting. Dope says, just like how Lennox and Tyson fought late in their careers, AJ and Fury will still make sense and needs to happen. Personally, I disagree with that. I don't think Lennox and Tyson... Well, here's the thing. In the minds of casuals, Lennox and Tyson needed to happen. But especially looking back in retrospect to any boxing hardcores, Mike Tyson was so washed up, he was so shot, that fight really didn't do anything for Lennox Lewis's legacy. He beat a shell of a man that used to be Mike Tyson. And that's not Lennox's fault. I mean, he's actually a year older than Mike Tyson. It was Mike Tyson's bad lifestyle and all that kind of stuff. Mike Tyson also paid step-aside money to Lennox Lewis earlier on when Tyson came out of prison and regained to the heavyweight belts, title belts. He paid step-aside money to Lennox Lewis, who was mandatory at the time. So it's not Lewis's fault, but the fact remains he beat a shell of a man in Mike Tyson. That was not even remotely close to the Mike Tyson who fought Holyfield. Never mind a peak Mike Tyson in the late 80s. So I think most hardcore boxing fans don't really look at Lewis's victory over Tyson as anything significant. It was almost like a ceremonial win. Do you know what I mean? Because he was so shot. Now with Partridge and AJ, I don't think the gap between them in terms of deterioration is as big as it was with Lennox Lewis and Mike Tyson. With Lennox Lewis and Mike Tyson, the gap in deterioration was absolutely ginormous. Whereas with Partridge and AJ, I don't think it's as big because, for one, Partridge doesn't look after himself. The guy's a borderline alcoholic. We know he's done a lot of nose candy in the past. He pigs out on food, balloons up in weight. He's taken a fair amount of punishment in his career, in pro fights and probably in the gym too. He appears to be psychologically and maybe neurologically, surprisingly, a bit fresher than AJ. But yeah, it's a funny one because AJ's probably physically in a better place than Partridge. It's just that mentally he was never as strong to begin with, and he's pretty much obliterated psychologically now. So that makes it a little more interesting in my mind, AJ versus Partridge, than Lennox Lewis versus Mike Tyson. But do I think the fight needs to happen? Maybe for bragging rights in the UK it needs to happen, for their era. But for the heavyweight division as a whole, it obviously doesn't need to happen because neither of these guys is the best. These are Alexander Usyk victims. So it doesn't need to happen to establish who the best is, but maybe it needs to happen. And they can't even establish who the best in the UK is. Because Daniel Dubois flattened AJ, Partridge has never fought Dubois, and neither of them have fought Fabio Wardley or Moses Itama. So this isn't even a fight to establish who the best in the UK is. It's just a fight to settle a long-standing rivalry. That's all it is. And just bragging rights for the fans of both fighters. We got Matt Borgerson for the super chat. He says, Gareth is a liar, stinky liar, man, what a stank. Right? Matt always going in on Gareth A. Davies. He's a big fan. I say sarcastically. Matt also says the undercard will be terrible for this too. Well, it might be. It just depends on how much the Saudis want to spend, because we've seen in the past they have put on big main event fights, which had good undercards in some cases, right? So it all depends how much they want to spend. Matt Borgerson says, when you pay fighters $100 million each, you ain't getting a good undercard. Well, normally no, but in this Saudi era, there have been good undercards. I mean, weren't the undercards, at least one of the undercards for the Partridge-Usyk fights were good, right? So in this Saudi, and also the way that Simon Jordan broke down the potential revenue that Netflix get, then you realize that paying $200 million, let's say, to AJ and Fury doesn't mean they have to have a weak undercard. Because basically he broke down the projected figures for, I think it was Jake Paul, Mike Tyson. And because of the fact that they got a certain number of extra signups in the run-up to the fight, in the weeks leading up to the fight, and the average Netflix user remains a Netflix user, a Netflix subscriber for a certain period of time, I think it's like 3 or 4 months, he calculated that from that Jake Paul, Mike Tyson fight, Netflix would have made several billion in extra revenue. Now, if that's accurate, 200 million for a pair of fighters is a drop in the ocean if they're getting a couple of billion extra in revenue. You know what I mean? Over the course of, 3 or 4 months, either side of the fight. So when you put that in context, maybe they can have a good undercard. Matt says the Saudis are done with boxing. Boxing will be back to where it was in 2018, 2019. The Saudis will not make money as long as the Strait of Hormuz is closed. They won't cover boxing anymore. Well, that remains to be seen, because as I understand it, they're just using alternate shipping routes now to distribute oil. Maybe they're using the Red Sea or whatever it is. Obviously, that's more expensive, but as long as they're getting the oil out, right, they're still a fantastically oil-rich nation. And so, I don't personally buy that at the moment, Matt, but we'll see how things play out. Afro Jam says, Ring Magazine is personally owned by Turkey, not the Saudi government. They'll be around for longer than the end of the year. And also, Netflix themselves, if they're making as much money as Simon Jordan claims, based on the extra sign-ups in the run-up to a big fight, maybe they can make sure there's a good undercard. A good undercard don't cost anywhere near as much as the main event. Bear that in mind. Okay, Retard Finder says, Hatman, have you noticed more Partridge fans claiming they have his birth certificate, trying to prove it's Tyson, not Luke? It's that silly Photoshop pic. All this makes it look like his name is Partridge. Yeah, there was some guy that turned up in a live stream many months ago, and he posted a link to a picture, which was actually not his birth certificate at all. Birth certificates don't look like that. I literally brought up examples of birth certificates from Luke Partridge's birth year in Britain. They don't look like that. This was some type of printout from a computer screen, which is basically from the GP, from the doctors. That's what it was. It wasn't a birth certificate at all. It was from the doctors, a printout from the screen at the doctors. Well, guess what? If you change your name by deed poll, you go to the doctor with a deed poll document and he changes your name in the medical system. It's not complicated. So only the actual birth certificate, a paper birth certificate, none of this print out from a screen. Everyone knows and everyone can look up what a paper birth certificate looks like from Britain in the late 1980s. Yeah? Get Partridge to produce that. Then we'll see what his name is, whether it's Luke or whether it's actually Tyson. I suspect it's Luke. That's his first name, not Tyson. I strongly suspect that. Big up Glum Coyote. He says, Hatman, you may produce the most excellent self, as I do not have hot water tonight. As she does, my girlfriend used up all the hot water, and as she routinely does, she managed to capsize our tank. That sounds dramatic, sir. Thank you for the super. She capsized your tank? I guess you mean she used up all the hot water? How long does it take for more water to heat up? Or is there some type of technical issue now with the tank? Capsize the tank. Is that plumber talk? Am I out of the loop here? That sounds crazy. Big up Glum Coyote. Much appreciated for the super chat. JY says they have always looked the same. Well, I don't know what modern birth certificates look like, but certainly you can see loads of examples. Just do a Google image search of a birth certificate, a British birth certificate from the late 80s, let's say 87 to 89. That's the range in which Partridge was born. You'll see what they look like, and they look absolutely nothing like that thing that the Partridge fanboys are trying to pass off as a birth certificate. That's some joke business. That's like a computer printout from the GP. It's not a birth certificate. Martin says, I don't think the Furies even denied that his name is Luke. That's interesting, actually. I'm not sure whether they have ever denied that his first name is Luke. That's interesting. That is interesting. His fans always deny it, but I'm not sure I've ever actually heard one of the Partridges deny that his first name is Luke. Interesting. JY says, my kids' certificates look exactly the same as mine. My thoughts on Pat Brown, I think he looks very dangerous to me. As far as hometown support, well, Pat Brown is not from Liverpool, is he? He's from Manchester. Only Belly's from Liverpool. But Brown looks very dangerous to me. And to borrow a phrase from Jim Watt, he's got a solid look about him. So I'm quite intrigued by Pat Brown. I can't say I'm totally sold on him yet, but I'm intrigued. Because to me, he does look solid. Fast hands, attacks ferociously, got power there. And I find it also interesting that since Pat Brown, maybe it's just a coincidence, but since Pat Brown has emerged on the scene, young Alois Jr. has kind of gone quiet, hasn't he? Again, it could just be a coincidence, but just want to point that out. Yeah, where's Carlos? Dylan White did call him Luke years ago in an IFL TV interview. He said, see, Dylan White actually trained with Luke Partridge long before Partridge became heavyweight champion, several years before he fought Vlad, when he was still with Peter Fury. And from the time that he spent, he was living with them, by the way. He was living with the Partridges, with Peter and Tyson and Huey. He was living with them, as well as training with them. And he said during that time, none of them ever referred to him as Tyson. They all called him Luke. That's what Dylan White claims, and I would not be the least bit surprised if that's actually true. I would not be the least bit surprised. Rybread says, lived near Fury for about 25 years. He's called Luke. Oh, wow. Is that right? Was that in Withenshaw in Manchester? Lex Gaming says, Hammond, do you see the latest Irish heavyweight prospect, Adam Olanyan? Yes, I did have a look at him. G-Man actually mentioned him in my Element group, so I did have a look at him. You know, still very amateurish. Doesn't have the obvious jump off the page talent that someone like a Moses Atama had. But, you know, he's got some amateur pedigree there. He's a tall guy. Moves relatively well. Very upright. Moves relatively well. Just have to wait and see. Big up Galaxy Edits. He says, hey, man, I have my second amateur fight next month. I found the video of my opponent on YouTube, so I'm looking for mistakes. Any advice? Well, I'd have to look at the video myself to really give you the best advice possible. Without having seen him, I give you the same advice I give everyone having their first amateur fight or first few. Keep your guard up, hands tight, and focus on landing your jab. Work your way into the fight using your jab, because, you know, normally early on in amateur careers, adrenaline takes over and the two guys just end up flailing away with, you know, wild shots. In the midst of all that, if you can stay calm and just focus on landing that straight jab down the middle, it will, for one, help you to work your way into the fight and give you confidence because you're able to consistently land that punch. He'll start to get anxious. He's getting his head knocked back with his jabs. And obviously you're scoring points with the judges. So yeah, I would just say, keep your hands up, keep everything tight, and just focus on thinking, okay, I'm going to block everything or duck a shot, and I'm going to land that jab down the middle. That's what I'm going to focus on doing. And once you've got that going on, see, it sounds very basic, but when you're dealing with novices, a lot of the time, all you need to do is the basics in order to get the victory. I mean, the real basics, because it's so novice-y and arms are flailing all over the place. The guy who just stays calmest and does the basics better, usually the guy's going to come out with a victory. So yeah, just do that. Try and stay calm, get that jab going. And as he gets frustrated, you're going to see more opportunities pop up to land other shots. Don't get too excited, don't get too greedy, but just, you know, mix a few other shots in there, here and there as well. So that's the advice I would give you. All the best for your second pro bout. Yeah, good jab can win a fight on its own. Where did the Partridge name come from? Well, I could have sworn I heard Peter Fury actually say that there's partridges in his family before. I honestly, because the main place where I got it from was this guy, and I've done a video about this, you can look it up on my YouTube channel. There was a guy on the boxing scene or Box Rec forum, one of the two. I think it was the Box Rec forum. And this was back in, I think, 2011. And he wrote this long piece on the forum about John Fury, or as he called him, Johnny Partridge. And he had all this background about Johnny Partridge, different situations he'd been in. And he said he had the same manager. He said that he had the same manager as John Partridge. He was a fighter himself. And he had so much detail about all this stuff to do with the background of, you know, Gypsy John Fury, aka Gypsy John Partridge, that you had to take the claim that the family name is actually Partridge seriously. Not that it's concrete proof, it's not. I want to be clear about that. But given all the detail he put into that post, and he said the real family name is Partridge, I swear it's true. And then he goes on to give paragraph after paragraph of his experiences dealing with John Fury. I was like, that's interesting. And then it just a light bulb went off in my head. I was like, I swear I've heard Peter Fury in an interview somewhere back in the days. You know, there used to be those channels. One of them was called like British Boxing something. And they were basically channels, YouTube channels, dedicated to rimming the Furies. You guys remember those weird channels? And there were these dudes who only used to ever interview the Furies. They didn't interview anybody else. There was a couple of the channels like that. And I think it was in one of those. If it weren't those, it might have been IFL or Boxing Social. But I vaguely remember an interview where Peter Fury was talking about his family background. And he said, we've also got partridges on this side. And yeah, it was something like that. If that's not true, Peter Fury can come out and refute it. If they don't have the partridge name in their family, the next time somebody asks Peter Fury, ask him whether it's true or not. Because Peter Fury is less likely to BS than Luke or John, right? So if someone with access to Peter Fury can ask him in the next interview, do you have the name Partridge in your family? I'm sure Peter Fury will answer honestly. And I suspect he's going to say, yes, we do. We do have the name Partridge in our family. Big up Al Booger. Big up Supply the Mind. Okay, used to box. He's now switched to Muay Thai. He's had 2 fights. Wants to do more. Have I ever watched Muay Thai or K1 or Rate It More MMA? Yeah, I watched K1 quite a bit back in the days, a lot more than Muay Thai. I've seen Muay Thai, obviously. Actual in Thailand Muay Thai. But they've got all the traditional music playing and and all that kind of thing. But I've seen far more K1 than Muay Thai. K1 was like this Japanese kickboxing thing, which was popular back in the days. Do I rate it more than MMA? K1 was a little, at times, freak showish, wasn't it? And for that reason, I did enjoy it a bit more than MMA to some extent. I mean, you know, there wasn't all the endless grappling and stuff that you see in MMA. So yeah, it could be more fun than MMA at times, K1. David Gold says, what do I think of Leo Atang? Do I think he has any potential? Yeah, he's got potential, but again, very, very raw, very, very novice-y, rushes his shots, very upright. None of these other young guys have got the poise and the obvious, prodigious talent of a Moses Atama, because that's basically what people are going to be comparing them to, right? Who they're going to be comparing? They're going to be comparing them to Atama. Let's just cut straight to the chase. And yeah, these guys don't have the polish, the poise, or the technical maturity of an Atama when he was their age. They don't have it. Doesn't mean they can't get it in future. Fighters develop at different rates. But as of right now, I don't see anyone that prodigious at the moment. Vengeance says Luke Partridge was born at Pear Tree Hospital. JY says, when is Moses fighting again? Is it the back end of this month or is it in April? Let me just double check for you. Speaking of assumed names, Moses Atama's name is not actually Moses, it's Enrico. But somehow, some way, he's assumed this name Moses, which, for the purposes of boxing, sounds a lot better than Enrico, doesn't it? Enrico sounds like some kind of lounge singer. He's fighting, yes, it is this month, the 28th of this month, 28th of March, the Co-op Live Arena in Manchester. Opinion on bare knuckle? Yeah, I can see the appeal to MMA fans because at the end of the day, MMA is a sport where, certainly in the UFC, the most popular fighters were always the strikers, not the grapplers. And we appear to be in more of a grappling era. Is that right? So you could see why the fans who liked all the striking have moved over to bare knuckle because it's more similar to MMA than, let's say, boxing. Because in MMA, they wear the little 4-ounce mitts, not boxing gloves. Exactly, BG London. Partridge isn't an odd road name. It's like one of the least intimidating surnames you could imagine. DJ says, Hatman, who wins now between Daniel Dubois and Luke Partridge? It's a very interesting fight, to be honest. We'll see how Dubois gets on against Wardley. If he manages to win and looks impressive, we'll see how Partridge looks against Makhmudov. Here's one thing I can tell you. Partridge tried to pull the wool over people's eyes in a similar way to Floyd Mayweather by dismissing people like Daniel Dubois. I don't need to fight him because I'd destroy him. It'd be easy. These are the kind of things that Partridge has said in the past. And his fans accepted that and took it as basically a default win over Dubois. Oh, Dubois has been beaten by this one and that one. No point in him fighting Partridge. Partridge would destroy him. We can put that as a win on Partridge's record without him actually stepping in the ring with Dubois. Ridiculous. All right? Totally ridiculous. If Partridge wants credit for even being the best heavyweight in the UK, he doesn't just have to beat Anthony Joshua. He has to beat Fabio Wardley and or Daniel Dubois. There you go. Luke's a gaslighting world champion. There's no Partridge birth certificate that's been released online. All there is there's a printout of some medical records from his GP. I mean, that means nothing. You can change your name by deed poll and update your medical records to reflect the name change. That doesn't mean anything. And you can do the same on your passport. It's very easy to change your name in the UK by deed poll and therefore change the name on your passport. It's a very, very quick and easy process. It doesn't take long. You don't even need a solicitor to do it. You can do it yourself. You can write a deed poll yourself as a legal document. Don't need anyone to do it for you. So that doesn't mean anything. Birth certificates will show what the name was at birth. And these Partridge fanboys have never produced an actual real birth certificate. All they've produced is a printout from the screen at the GPs. Nonsense. Why Jace is £100? No, it's free. You can go to the UK government website and look up deed poll, and it will say you do not need a solicitor to make a deed poll document. You can do it yourself. And it's legally, binding or however you want to describe it. Oh, but yeah, changing the passport will cost you £100 or whatever, yeah. Changing a passport will cost you whatever, but, light work, it's nothing. There's only one Luke Partridge. One Luke Partridge. Walking along, singing a song. Walking the Partridge Wonderland. There's only one Luke Partridge. See, if I was to actually go to this fight, I would start that chant in the crowd. There's only one Luke Partridge. One Luke Partridge. Walking along, singing a song. Walking in the Partridge Wonderland. Get some t-shirts made. There you go. That's a good idea. I'll flog a few of those. Might even do that. WPW says, I've never seen anyone with the name Partridge in real life. It's not a common name. Can't think of one famous person with that name. There's actually a guy who tunes into the streams called Andy Partridge. His username is Andy P. And he actually said, I think he might be on my Patreon as well, as his actual name. I think his email is actually Andrew Partridge. So funny enough, there's actually a guy that watches these streams called Andy P, and the P is short for Partridge. So there are some people out there called Partridge. I mean, do phone books still exist? The yellow pages? You'd be able to look the Partridges up in the phone book. Oh, wow. Hazaroff says, the fact my nursery teacher's last name was Partridge is why I can't take that name seriously. Philly the Villain says, I know a Partridge family, so that's not true. You got Copezilla for the super chat. He says, and a partridge in a pear tree. Yes, somebody was telling me earlier on in the stream that Jared Anderson has signed a co-promotional deal with Queensbury and is looking to fight in the UK. That's very surprising. Galaxy Edit says, one of the Partridges, I'm not sure which one, that he went to a hotel and the owner was a friend of my dad, and the Partridge started kicking off, ended up getting knocked out with a chair. Oh, wow, that's interesting. What's my opinion on the IBF situation with Al Riley? He's fighting Masternak, right? Have I got that right? He's fighting Masternak? And it's an IBF final eliminator? Guess it's okay. The cruiserweight division isn't the strongest these days, is it? Although you do have Pat Brown coming through. Austin Spear says, Anderson versus FA, who wins it if it happens? If it happens next, I'm picking FA or Jagba, definitely. Anderson has a lot of potential, but the two things that concern me about him are his chin and his mental state. He appears to be a very emotionally fragile young man. And that's a concern. You know, how can you rely on someone like that to produce the goods when they're that emotionally unstable and fragile, especially when they also got questionable chin? But he has ability. He's quick. He's athletic. He's got some power there. He's got heart. I'll give him that. He's definitely got heart. I mean, he went out on his shield against Piccoli. He's definitely got heart. He's got stamina. But there are massive gaping holes in his defense. And his chin is shaky, you know? Yeah, Anderson versus Adelaide is a shout. Somebody said that, I think it was on yesterday's stream or the day before. A 100% agree, Striker. I think I'm going to have to get right to it. The Luke Partridge t-shirts, it's an absolute genius move. I'm going to get to that and try and flog some of those, to be honest. I'm going to try and flog some of those. That's a fantastic merch idea. Luke Partridge t-shirts, Luke Partridge mugs, Luke Partridge bed sheets, curtains. Let's do the whole range. JR says, sold. McNocta says, I'm in the US and I'd still buy one. JR says, I'd buy one for the bands. JR says, mock him up in tweed. David Gold says, Adelaide versus Hooney, who wins? God, that's a tough one. I'd go with Hooney, but again, there's another guy with a suspect chin. Hooney, you know? He'll be outboxing Adelaide nicely. Just like he was outboxing Fabio Wardley. But if he gets caught with one good one, could be all over. Reese says, I'll buy the mugs. Right, Brett says, I'll buy one for the local. Big up Mark, he says, safe hat man. Who do you think is the best American heavyweight? Who's the best American heavyweight? Right now? It's between Jarrell Miller, Andy Ruiz, and Richard Torres. It's between those three, isn't it? You might even say Miller. I mean, Miller looked terrible in his last fight, but is there anyone else I'm missing? It's got to be one of those three, like Torres, Miller, or Andy Ruiz. Cobzilla says wild out. I don't see it. JR says Luke Partridge could be a local greengrocer in the West Country. It does give off them kind of vibes, doesn't it? Great comment, yes. Luke Partridge does sound like a West Country greengrocer. I agree, Ryan Emus. Hooney is a very good boxer. But Chinny. Al Booger says Torres is pretty thin over there. He is indeed. All right. Ryan says he's all over the Partridge t-shirts if I do it, and I will do it. So stay tuned for that. And big up the person that proposed the idea. It's a fantastic idea. There's only one Luke Partridge. One Luke Partridge. Walking along, singing a song, walking in a Partridge Wonderland. There's only one Luke Partridge. One Luke Partridge. Walking along, singing a song, walking in the Partridge Wonderland. Ryan says, keep your hair on, hat man. Hashtag Miller. Little Jacob says, Luke Partridge sounds like someone who would form a Mr. Bean Appreciation Society. That's another great comment. KD versus the World says, why do so many girls have bipolar disorder these days? I'm sure there's a multitude of reasons, but if I can offer one potential reason, in my opinion, promiscuity. There you go, I said it. I don't think women are mentally or even neurologically designed for it. And I think it causes a lot of problems with them, far more problems with females than it causes with males psychologically. And I think it can lead, again, I'm just saying it as an opinion, to things like bipolar disorder. Vengeance says Peter Partridge has a twang to it. More sounds like Peter Parker, Spider-Man. Yeah, that tends to be the case. Jordan says girls who I grew up with had high body counts are crazy as hell now. It's exactly what I've seen. I've never encountered a high body count female that wasn't really disturbed. Like all of the ones I've seen with high body counts are really disturbed people. Like objectively so. Dysfunctional and just way, way out there. David Gold says, if a Tama was to wipe Franklin out within 3 rounds, who would you like him to fight next? I'd say Hrgovic. Ryan Emer says, what's going on with Bakole, Zhang, and Hrgovic? Good question. I don't know. But I think all of them, well, maybe Hrgovic has got a bit more wiggle room. But certainly, Zhang and Bakole need to sign with Zuffa. That's it. They need to sign with Zuffa and do whatever Zuffa tell them to do. Because they're going nowhere fast in their careers, are they? They might as well sign up to Zuffa. If you're a bit younger and you've got more options, then Zuffa might not be the place to go. But for Zhang and Bakole, I think it is the place to go. If they're wanted over there. Someone says, I can't take the Zuffa name seriously. I don't know why. Zhang is in his early 40s. I think he might be 42. There you go. Jordan says, I work with a Gen Z 26-year-old. She is open about her high body count and then proceeds to talk about her many problems mentally. Can't put 2 and 2 together. We got Rye Bread. Yep, let's get them likes up. Got 206 concurrent viewers, only 62 likes. Let's get the likes over 100, please, folks. Thank you in advance. You wonderful people. If we can get them likes up, really helps The visibility of these streams only takes a split second. If you enjoy the content and the conversation, hopefully I'm keeping you entertained. Just stick a like on this stream, please. Yeah, apparently Zuffa means fight in Italian. Words to that effect. Or a word to that effect, yes. Big up Glum Coyote for the super chat. It says, women are happy to go down with ecological annihilation. Please do not raise and adopt them out of sheer empathy. Big up Glum Coyote. Always very poetic with his comments. And he makes a good point there regarding empathy. I think one of the biggest pitfalls that men can have is having too much empathy for women in the modern world. It's very different having empathy for women in the old world, when the majority of women would marry as virgins and there could be conflicts that leave them widowed and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, then you can have empathy for them. I mean, I remember debating some guy on Instagram, and it was on a post where somebody was talking about how they're not interested in dating single mothers. And this guy, who I think was a Muslim convert, he was some black American guy, and he started saying, oh no, in the Quran it says we're supposed to look after single mothers. Like, the Quran was written at a time which was very socially conservative. And, you know, a lot of women would marry as virgins and their husbands would be killed in battle or something like that. It's a totally different context. The women that the Quran is telling you to look after, the single mothers, are like widows and stuff like that. Not some local bicycle who's got, like, you know, 8 kids by 3 or 4 different guys. Those are not the people that the Quran's telling you to look after. The guy had no discernment. Anyway. You know, obviously there are great women out there in the world, women with a moral compass and decency and all that kind of stuff, but unfortunately there's a growing number who are, you know, not so great. And the ones who are not so great, oh, they love to catch a guy who's overly empathetic to the female cause. Oh, they love to catch a guy like that lacking. Dear, oh dear, oh dear. What they'll do with a guy like that, he'll get rinsed and hung out to dry. And the funny thing is, women will tell you this stuff. Like, I've literally been on dates with women, known women who have told me straight up, if a guy can't put me in my place, I will take the absolute you know what out of him. I'll take liberties with him if he can't put me in my place. So many women over the years have told me that. They've literally, they're quite blatant about the fact that guys who are nice and have a good heart will get played like a fiddle and they won't feel any remorse or any guilt about doing it. Big up Glum Coyote. He says, yes, I was an American with a horrific number of corpses. Or with an American, excuse me, with a horrific number of corpses. And she was a wreck. Her mind was so patchy, and some parts were dispatched in the everlasting night. Yeah, simping ain't easy. There you go. Simping really ain't easy. That's a full-time job. Shout out to Am I Dead Yet? Yeah, Shane is more reasonable than certainly John or Luke, for sure. Can Peter Fury work out how to beat Usyk? Maybe with the right fighter, but who the hell's the right fighter? You probably have to get in a Tama or someone like that in a couple years' time. Verhoeven ain't gonna do it. Well, I'd be surprised if Tank signed with Zuffa, to be honest. I think Tank is going to continue on with PBC in that little cult. I'd be surprised if he signed with Zuffa. Tank wouldn't work with the Saudis before, and I'm sure he knows that the Saudis are behind Zuffa, so I'd be surprised if he did. We got Matt, he says, how did anyone believe that Sims would beat Barboza? I haven't actually seen that fight. I've only seen the thumbnail for the highlights. Was it a good fight? How could I forget Caballero? Yes, maybe Caballero could do it too, possibly. Thank you for reminding me of Caballero. It's kind of a sin to forget Caballero in the current context, isn't it? He's been overlooked and denied of his title shot. Marlo says, where the hell is Hughie Fury? I saw a thumb. I didn't actually watch the interview, but I know there's an interview that's been put up over the past few days of Hughie Fury saying that he's had an offer from Andy Ruiz. But as I've said so many times about Hughie Fury, if I was a promoter, I would never put Hughie Fury on one of my cards. Never. Not because he isn't a decent fighter and there's some name value there. And it's not even because he's generally quite boring to watch. It's mainly because he's pulled out of so many fights. I've literally never in my life seen a heavyweight pull out of so many fights as Hughie Fury. And it doesn't matter whether he's got a legitimate reason for pulling out, health issues. That's irrelevant. As a promoter, I need to know that a fighter's going to turn up and fight. If I'm putting him on posters and paying for promotion and doing press conferences and people are buying tickets based on the fact, or partly based on the fact, that this particular fighter is going to be fighting, another fighter, then it's no good when the guy keeps pulling out of the damn fights. Okay, it's due to health issues. That's not my problem. I'm trying to make money here. Do you know what I mean? So if I was a promoter, I would never have Hughie Fury on one of my cards. And if I was a heavyweight, I would never agree to fight him for the same reason. The guy's just pulled out too many times. Way, way too many times. Austin says, can you explain why people get in relationships with you just to use you while planning on being with someone else? This happened to me. She never loved me and always planned to be with her current boyfriend. Well, that is happening I mean, that happens to men and women, but that happening to men is becoming increasingly common. And one thing you just need to know, I actually did an episode talking about all this stuff on my Patreon page, by the way. Big up, just plugging my Patreon page for a minute. I did an episode today on my Patreon page on the Brotherhood of Reason tier. Yeah. You can go listen to it. I think the first 5 minutes or 10 minutes are free to listen to on my Patreon page. Just check the link in the description. And it's about the epidemic of male self-unaliving. I'm using that as a substitute term for the actual word for the sake of the algorithm. All right, you guys know what I mean? I talked on Patreon today for about 45, 50 minutes about the epidemic of male self-unaliving. Male self-deleting. Yeah? And I think one of the reasons that it's so much more common for men to do that than women is because it's more difficult for men in the modern world when it comes to breakups. They don't have as much of an emotional support network, etc., etc. I talk about all that stuff, and I offer potential solutions that might help some men avoid scenarios like that. But yeah, it's very, very unfortunate, Austin, that things like that are happening. And, you know, a lot of people out there are very manipulative and they'll use you and won't have any empathy, no sympathy, no heart at all. But if you can take any solace at all, you can at least think, well, if she's done that to me and she's that kind of person with such little compassion, imagine what she could do to him. Do you know what I mean? I know it's not going to give you that much comfort for people to say you dodged the bullet, right? But yeah, you might take some solace in thinking that, well, she'd probably do this to the next person too. It's like getting into a relationship with someone who was with, basically, it's like getting into a relationship with someone who you were having an affair with, like they were cheating on their partner and then they left their partner to be with you. Why would you get into a relationship with someone like that? You know what I mean? They left who they were with to be with you. They can do the same to you. Student Q says, I'm surprised Huey got kids. His pull-out game is so strong. You know, one of the interesting things that I've observed is this phenomenon of modern women refusing to quote unquote settle. They think that settling is like a dirty word or something. And they've become so delusional in what they expect a relationship to be that they're willing to end relationships over the most ridiculous, trivial reasons. And they think that there's someone for everyone and you're eventually going to find your person. I mean, it is the biggest pipe dream load of absolute rubbish that's ever been sold in human history. Too many movies and social media and all these rubbish that they fill their heads with. Men are a lot more pragmatic generally when it comes to finding someone. Yeah? We are more realistic in terms of where we are in a dating market and our value in the dating market. And so, as a man, of course you're willing to settle. Most men will say, yeah, I'm willing to settle. I'm willing to get with someone who's not my ideal and just remain with them. But it's like a thing with modern women where they're like, no, I'll never settle. I won't settle. It's like, what? How weird is that? So you think you're going to find the perfect person, and you're just showing me that you are going to end up as a cat mum at 50 and 60, crying yourself to sleep, 2-3 bottles of wine a night. I mean, that's how you're going to end up. All this, I don't settle. Nonsense, man. Everyone has to, or most people have to settle. We all have to settle. All this stuff about, oh, you're going to find your perfect mate. Load of rubbish, mate. Everyone settle. The vast majority of people who end up with someone for the rest of their lives, they settle. It's what it is. You got to be realistic. David Gold says, maybe I'm being insensitive, but I have zero respect for a man who would unalive himself over a female who broke his heart. It's not that deep. Yeah, I totally disagree with that. I totally disagree with that. Maybe you have just had a really good experience, but no, man, I've seen some of the strongest guys broken and messed up because, as I mentioned in my Patreon upload, a lot of guys don't have an emotional support network, and it's not their fault. You know, circumstances have conspired in such a way that they don't have an emotional support network. And so when they end up being in a relationship, that girl is their entire emotional support network. And then when she pulls the rug from underneath their feet, bad stuff can happen. So no, I've got massive sympathy for them, to be honest, because life is not easy for most men. I mean, maybe it's easy for you, David Gold. Maybe you're one of these blessed guys, right? There are these guys who just live a blessed life. But most guys don't live a blessed life. Especially in the modern West, most guys do not live a blessed life. Jordan says, how come rich guys pick such bad women? Well, I don't think most rich guys do pick bad women. I just think it's celebrity guys. Celebrity guys make up a small proportion of rich guys. Yeah, celebrity guys make up a small proportion of rich guys. Kaya says, I agree with David. It's pathetic to self-delete as a man. Well, this is one of the reasons that men do self-delete. Because there's no sympathy. I mean, that's actually part of the problem. The fact there's no sympathy for men and the struggles they go through is one of the reasons they self-delete. That's literally the problem. And I spoke about all of this in my Patreon episode today. The fact that these guys who self-delete get no compassion from anyone. They don't get compassion from men. They don't get compassion from women. They get compassion from nowhere. It's just like a heartless scenario that they find themselves in, and they can't take it. So I've got a massive amount of compassion for guys who end up in that way. Big up Charles B in the chat. Chainsaw says, loads of veterans self-delete, calling them pathetic as a joke. But KS, not everyone has, the right fathers and all that kind of stuff. People live difficult lives, They don't grow up in ideal situations with the right mentorship, and they don't. They're just left to fend for themselves in the world and figure it out. And, you know, the average guy is unimpressive. Yeah? The average man is invisible to most women these days in the social media era. They can't fight. They're not particularly smart. I mean, no wonder so many of them are simping. It's hard, bro. And nature is harsh on males in general, at least with mammals, right? You look at male lions, when the alpha male of a pride is challenged by another and loses, he is then rejected by the entire pride. And if he suffered wounds in that battle where he lost, he's basically left to die. All the female, the lionesses all turn their backs on him. Even in nature, it's harsh on the male, very harsh. And of course, if you look at anthropology, they estimate that only 30 to 40% of males, human males, men, that have ever existed on planet Earth have reproduced. 30 to 40%. Whereas 80% of women that have ever existed have reproduced. And that's not because these men decided to MGTOW when they were cavemen. No, it's because men would have a much higher chance of dying young before they got the chance to reproduce, because they were out hunting and there was bears and animals and all this kind of stuff. Also getting killed by other males, often competing to try and mate with females. And many males were just rejected outright throughout the course of human history. Natural selection, survival of the fittest, and all that kind of stuff. It's a cutthroat life to be a male mammal on planet Earth. I mean, it's cutthroat, it's unsympathetic, it's cold, and I've got the most amount of sympathy, for guys who aren't alive. It's a hard world. It's a difficult world out there, bro. It's a tough, tough world. And as I say, part of the reason that they do unalive is because they get no compassion. No one cares. You get the, guys who have no compassion for them and look down on them and, mock them and all that kind of stuff. And women do the same. There is no compassion, no empathy for the male struggle at all. And that actually is one of the reasons that some men end up in the criminal world, because they see that as the only avenue to actually get in any kind of social status, which then leads to relationships, money, and all that kind of business. And it's sad that someone would think they need to go down that road, because that's a very dark road indeed. But that's what they do, some of them. I mean, I remember watching Ross Kemp. He did one of his documentaries in Jamaica, and he spoke to a local don of a Jamaican garrison. That's what they call ghettos in Kingston, Jamaica, garrisons. And this local don was only about 23, balaclavaed up, AK-47 with his boys. And in that particular area, it was like 70% female. And they asked him, why is there so few men here? He says, because most of them have been killed. That's how crazy it is there. Being killed or either run away because it's so dangerous there. And Russ Kemp asked the guy, only 23, I mean, the amount of dirt you must have done to be a don of a Jamaican garrison at 23 is crazy. And so Russ Kemp asked him, why did you get into this life? And he answered very simply. He said, to get women. Imagine, this guy at 23 decided to become a career criminal in one of the most dangerous places on planet Earth, where the life expectancy for men in that life and in that environment is extremely low. He was willing to go to that extreme just to get girls. That is how desperate life can be for a man. It's no joke. It is no joke. It can be that desperate. KS says, all this sympathy talk is very effeminate. Effeminate? It's effeminate to have sympathy? You sound like a psychopath. You say no one cares, take action. Not everyone can take action. If it was so easy to take action, everyone would be doing it, KS. It's not realistic. What you're saying is illogical. It is impossible even in the animal kingdom for every male to win. Doesn't matter if everyone you say take action, not everyone can take action and still fail. Doesn't make sense. Saying that sympathy talk is effeminate, no, you sound like a psychopath. Psychopaths lack the ability to empathize with other people. That's literally what a psychopath is. You sound like a psychopath talking that. We got Ben Oldham for the super chat. He says, don't wifey girls from the club bar, has male friends from single parents, tattoos, under 5'4". Okay, that's an interesting one. Under 5'4". Why under 5'4"? Okay, active on social media, over the age of 27, smokes, has children, adhere to this, you'll be good. Okay, big up Ben Oldham for the super chat. Why the 5'4" thing though? Why are you hating on the short queens? What's all that about? Damn, George Brush says it as well. What's wrong with the under 5'4"s? KS says, no, I have sympathy for my children and wife. As a man, you either work on yourself or don't reproduce. Again, that is a borderline psychopathic comment. And when you have that kind of mentality, and other men who are suffering, who you don't have any sympathy for, find you with that kind of mentality, how do you think they're going to deal with you? Do you know what I mean? If they catch you slipping, how do you think they're going to deal with you? Compassion for the downtrodden can actually take you a long way in this life. Austin Spear says, my mom is 4'11". I'm still waiting to hear about this under the 5'4" thing. What's wrong with girls under 5'4"? Okay, WPW says, short women tend to be crazy. Plus, if you have kids, good chance they be short. I'm 6'2". I won't want to have short kids. It's harder for them. Okay, the short thing I get. You know, as far as the kids being short, okay, that makes sense. But as far as short women being crazy, that's not something I've noticed personally. I've dated women under 5'4" before, and as far as I remember, they were all right. So, I don't know. We've got another borderline psychopath in Crypt Talk saying, Primark Andrew Tate's in the chat talking about pathetic grow up. Again, this is part of the problem. This is literally part of the problem. This is why you have this epidemic of male self-deletion, because there is no sympathy for them. They get ridiculed and bashed by other men. They get shunned and mocked by women. I'm just like, yo, it's wild to me. It's so wild. But again, I spoke about all of this in my Patreon episode earlier on today. It's just so wild that people can be that callous. Oh, okay. Crypt Talk says, I mean, it's pathetic to call men who do it pathetic. Oh, excuse me. Sorry, Crypt Talk. I got the wrong end of the stick. Sorry about that. Yeah, to me, it is crazy. If a man unalives, he's supposed to be ridiculed. Like, that is so vicious. I don't understand even where that energy comes from. Yeah, apologies. Friendly fire. Have I ever dated someone taller than me? No, never. That'd be wild. No, I've never dated someone taller than me. Um, but as far as shorter women, I've never had any issue with like women under 5'4", actually. But I watched the Louis Theroux documentary. No, I didn't. Louis Theroux is just a propagandist at this point. Louis Theroux, to me, lost all credibility when he claimed that Jim will fix it acted alone. I mean, dear, oh dear, oh dear. He just became a complete propagandist. And now he's doing this thing about, oh, the manosphere. Oh dear. And this is why there's so many problems now in the West. You got Kayvon Green. Galaxy Edit says, I watched Louis Theroux's latest documentary and he didn't really slag off masculinity or the red pill community. He just showcased the worst of the worst and let them speak for themselves. Well, that's pretty much the same thing, and that's pretty much what he always does. So it's a hit piece, basically. I haven't covered that in this live stream, Kayvon Green, but I do cover that on my Patreon because that's a real hot topic and that's a real sensitive topic to talk about on YouTube right now. That whole situation in the Middle East, it's like, it's a bit too sticky to talk about that on here. So I'll stick to talking about that on Patreon for the most part. David Gold says, I'm not saying I haven't got any sympathy for men. I just don't think a man should let a woman be the center of his existence, especially if she's not his wife or the mother of his children. That sounds logical, but for a lot of men, they don't have any other option. I remember talking to the sister of my ex, right? At the time when I was with my ex, right? And she works as a psychiatric nurse. And she was telling me about one of her patients who was a female that kept trying to unalive herself. And my ex's sister was one of the biggest bicycles in Croydon. All right. She was a scatel. And she's all sorts of messed up psychologically. That's why I never liked her. Even now, she's messed up. She must be close to 40 now. A trail of failed relationships, a failed marriage, kids by different guys, the lot. And, you know, ridiculously opinionated when she doesn't even have any sensible opinions. You know those types. Got so much to say, but such little substance to it. Anyway, I was having this conversation with her, and she was basically almost ridiculing her patient. Not to the patient, but to me, because the patient wanted to unalive herself. And I was like, wow. This is a person working with the mentally ill, and they got no sympathy for someone who's literally trying to unalive themselves. Wow. I mean, with friends like these, who needs enemies? Good God, man. And I was trying to explain to her that, look, life is tough for different people. Some people grow up and they're abused. They grow up and they have, you know, different experience. And not everyone is wired the same way. Not everyone has the same baseline level of confidence, of mental and emotional stability. Some people are naturally more fragile. Some people are naturally more tough. You know? Like, life is hard for some people. My life has not been easy. But trust and believe, I'm endlessly grateful for the fact that it could have been much worse. Do you know what I mean? I see some of the lives that people live, and I'm like quaking in my boots. I'm like, thank God I didn't incarnate as that person. Yeah? Which is one of the reasons where I don't want to reincarnate, because I've seen how messed up life can be if you're born in the wrong place at the wrong time, in the wrong family, in the wrong circumstance. I've seen how terrible life can be and how miserable it can be. Yeah? People unalive themselves for all sorts of different reasons. Some people don't have an emotional support network. They don't have a choice in many cases but to put a particular person at the center of their world. Some guys literally don't have a choice. I'm telling you, it's that hard for some guys out there. And even for some girls, right? Not as common, I don't think, as it is for guys, but even for some girls. For some women, it's that tough. So, but yeah, to hell with reincarnation. That's dead. Unless you can pick who you want to be, no thank you as far as reincarnation. Imagine, I mean, I'm in Africa, bro. And this is a relatively developed country, but there are slums even here in the capital city where I live. And bro, you do not want to grow up in one of them slums. You are not going to have opportunities in life. You're going to live a hard life. There's going to be no sympathy. Do you know what I mean? Like, yo, bro. F that for a game of cricket or a game of soldiers, whatever the saying is. So I'm grateful when I see how tough it is for other people, that it wasn't a hell of a lot tougher for me. Ros B says, to be fair, many psychologists find their patients annoying and can be unsympathetic when they aren't working. I've known a few. Well, one of the things regarding unaliving, which I mentioned in my Patreon episode earlier on today, somebody pointed it out, shout out to Joe, he pointed it out, is that yes, men unalive themselves at something like an 8 times higher rate than women, but women attempt to unalive themselves at a higher rate than men. And let's just be real, guys. I'm sure many of you have come across women like this. If you're really serious about unaliving yourself, if you fail once, okay, maybe it was a genuine failure. If you fail 3 or 4 times, unless you're actually a psychiatric patient, then you didn't mean it. All right? And a lot of these females who continuously, quote unquote, attempt to unalive themselves by taking whatever or drinking a bottle of, it's just attention seeking, which is why they continue to do it and never succeed. It's just attention seeking. That's all it is. That's why they do it. Because they love all the attention that comes. Oh, poor you, and patting. That's just attention seeking. That's emotional manipulation. That's what it is. When men attempt to do it, they usually mean it. It's not any kind of attention seeking. It's like they mean it. So, the other stuff is attention seeking. And I'm not saying all women who attempt only do it for attention. Some of them are genuine too, but a load of them are not. And I remember in secondary school, there were some girls like that who would just do all that for attention. Like, come on, man. This is pathetic. Okay, that actually made me laugh from KS. It's a grandparent who accidentally falls down the stairs to have all the family come together and get attention. Yes, and women are far more likely to do stuff like that. Whereas men are less likely to do stuff like that because they're not going to get any attention. If a man says he's about to unalive himself, let's be real, nobody cares. Literally, no one cares. No one cares. Unless the guy's famous or something, you know? If he's just a regular guy, no one cares. And the disgusting part happens after he's already passed away. That is when people will try and milk sympathy for themselves for being friends or relatives, or the most dastardly one, the ex who left him. Oh my God, then they start milking sympathy for themselves as victim. That's a shocker. The person who you weren't with when they were alive, now they've passed. You want to, oh, it's so sad. Give it a rest. I mean, all of us can relate to that to some extent. You know, that those fake friends, flaky friends who never call, who only want to, you know, be around when they can benefit something off you. You know, the day you pass away, they're going to be up on Instagram like, oh, that's my guy, R.I.P. You know, them kind of fake friends. Those people are the worst of the worst. Oh my God. Most of us have got people like that, you know what I mean, who we know, who are the flakiest. I mean, not even friends, they're just associates. The day we pass away, oh my, they're gonna be milking all kind of, oh my day one passed away, trying to milk sympathy off it. Unbelievable. Yo. Indeed, they got to cash in on those virtue signal points. Big up Liam Goff, G-Man in the chat. Indeed, JR. Yeah, the ex attending the funeral is nasty work. Rye Bread says even family members do it. Yeah, they do. Oh, yeah, they do. Because they want to try and appease their guilty consciences, don't they? That's why family members do it, because family members are like, eek, I should have been closer to this person in life. I wasn't. Now they've passed. Eek, let me act like I really cared about them. I mean, come on. So yeah, even family members do all that, bro. Dear, oh dear. Big up Liam Goff. He says, 7 years ago, my mate passed. He was deleted. Not deleted. Next day, we did a candlelight where it happened. His ex from 4 years prior came and was milking it like crazy. She went mad when the current girlfriend arrived. See, that don't surprise me at all. It's really disgusting behavior, but that don't surprise me at all. That don't surprise me at all. Yo, Blum Coyote, he says, men wouldn't behave to reach such a mad dedication. JR says, how does this get fixed? Unplugging social media for a start, surely. Social media is so bad for human interaction. In terms of real, meaningful connections and interact. It's so bad. Unless you got family that live overseas, then it's helpful. But in terms of family and friends and loved ones and whoever that live in your vicinity, in your town, in your country, social media is terrible. Because now it gives people an excuse to not actually be with that person physically. It's terrible. KS says, as a man, you learn early on in life is cold towards you, so you have to do whatever it takes to survive or hold it. Yeah, I agree, you learn that, but not every man is going to be able to survive. That's all I'm saying, and I have sympathy for the guys who can't survive. Yeah, I have basic human compassion for the guys who incarnate here, and they're not given the ability, the mentality, the upbringing, the confidence, the strength. They don't have those things to be able to survive in the cutthroat environment. I've got empathy for those guys. They didn't choose to be here. They didn't choose to incarnate as inadequate for the job. You know what I mean? It's like, for example, I'll give you guys an extreme example. Mini-Me. You know the little dwarf, Mini-Me, from Austin Powers? He unalived himself. Now, when he unalived himself, I mean, what, you're not going to be sympathetic? The guy's like 3 foot tall. Imagine how effed up your life is when you're 2.5 foot tall. They said he had a drinking problem. Well, damn right he had a drinking problem. I'd have a drinking problem if I was if I was shorter than a cat. Crazy. I'm right, he had a drinking problem, bro. Imagine being a 2 foot man. Yo, that's how cruel life can be. Uzi says he had a wild life from what I read, plenty of women. Yeah, but bro, no woman is going to respect a 2 foot man. Yes, women, because of their hypergamous nature, will sleep with a 2 foot man. But how are they going to treat a 2 foot man? How can a 2 foot man have any authority in his household? He's shorter than his kids when they're children. It's like, bro. It's wild, bro. So I had the most amount of sympathy for Mini-Me when he unalived himself. Like, dear, oh dear, oh dear. That's like a nightmare. Imagine incarnating and you're a man 2 foot tall. Big up Mr. Luca for the super chat. It says Ali versus Pete for Pete Lennox. How does it go? it's a really difficult one because neither guy fought anything like the other during their careers. You know, Ali never fought anything like Lennox Lewis. Lennox Lewis never fought anything like Muhammad Ali. So it's a really difficult one. I'm going to go with Ali just, but it's a real difficult matchup in my head. Real difficult. I agree with Rye Bread. Sympathy for people becomes more rare and rare. Support men's health. I agree. You know, there have been people over the years, one guy a couple of months back in the live chat, who said that he has suffered from serious mental health problems, constant unaliving thoughts, self-unaliving, self-deletion. And he said that my videos have helped him to get through patches of extreme depression. And for one, I'm surprised that my little silly boxing videos could help someone to that extent. But I'm extremely grateful to whoever the creator or whatever that's given me the ability indirectly to help people in that way. Do you know what I mean? The guy said he listens to me and he finds my voice therapeutic or calming or whatever the case may be. I'm glad. I mean, I'm glad. It's a hard world. It's a tough world out there. Cold world. Charles B says there's more than just boxing videos, bro. Yeah, there is on Patreon, obviously, but I don't think this guy was actually on my Patreon. I think he was just a YouTube subscriber. I was like, damn, bro. I mean, that's deep. I'm very glad that I would be able to indirectly help someone in that way. You know what I mean? People are talking about Little Man. Yeah, but Little Man is like the upper echelon of dwarves. He's not like a standard dwarf, is he? For one, he's like ripped. He's hench. He's not a standard dwarf. You can't be comparing Little Man to Mini-Me from Austin Powers. It's like a totally different universe. Little Man is like best case scenario for a dwarf. You'll end up like Little Man. He's like top of the tree. Oh, okay. Charles B says, no, I'm saying these are more than just boxing vids. Good vibes. Big up, Charles B. Big up, Glum Coyote. He says, there is a kind of boundless love only women can give, I've noticed. I don't think in this day and age that many men experience that kind of boundless love from any woman other than their mother. Unfortunately. Because they don't make them like, well, for one, you know, a mother's love is different, but also they don't make them like they used to. Ben Odom says, Hatman, you would make a good father. I like to think so. There you go, KS. Little Man is an alpha dwarf. That's a perfect way to describe him. He's an alpha dwarf. Little Man is the best. If you had to incarnate as a dwarf, and you got to choose all the scenarios, you'd choose to be something like a Little Man, innit? That's best case scenario. Best case scenario. Shady says dads can have boundless love too. You know what? You're absolutely right. And I've always found in my life, controversial, right? I've always felt more love from my dad than my mom. Truth be told. I've always felt, not that my mom don't love me, big up mumsy. If I'm gonna be objective about it, I've always felt more love from dad than mom. WPW says there's always going to be more love from one than the other, sadly. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's natural to some extent. I don't know whether it's even possible. Well, let me not say it's not possible. I think it's quite difficult, maybe for a parent to love all their kids equally. I'm not saying it's impossible. In some cases, perhaps they do, but, you know, the personalities of kids can be so different. And the parents will tend to favor the kids who they either get along with better or the ones who remind them of themselves better, you know, on a vanity tip. When the kids remind them of themselves, they try to live vicariously through the kid. And because I've always had this closer relationship with my dad than my mom, I've always been a big advocate for recognizing fathers. You know, I didn't have the stereotypical black inner city upbringing with the absentee dad. No, my dad raised me. So I don't I don't know that perspective. And there are loads of dads who are unsung heroes, you know? Mothers get all the praise and all this kind of stuff. The dads don't get any praise. To me, it's always been wild. Like, I've seen all the stuff my dad did to raise us and put a roof over our head and clothes on our back. And, you know, come rain, sleet, hail, snow, that man protected us and provided for us. And it's a thankless job, especially in modern society. The mums get all the credit even when they're bad mums. Single mums with 3, 4 baby dads. Oh, love you, mumsy. What about dad? Dads don't get any credit. Maybe, you know, this is more prevalent in the black diaspora in places like Britain and America. It always used to grind my gears. The dads don't get the credit. Afro Jam says there are single fathers nowadays too. They are invisible in the media. And you know what? There would be a lot more single fathers if the courts didn't overwhelmingly give women custody in custody battles. There'd be way more single fathers. A lot of guys out there would happily take on the role of being a single dad rather than the mum doing the job if they got the opportunity to do it. Don't get that. effed up. Yeah? Just because you see a single woman, it doesn't mean that the dad ran away. In some cases he did, yeah. But then why wasn't she in a committed relationship, living with the guy, maybe married to the guy before having kids? I mean, why did she do that? It's 6 of one and half a dozen of the other. But in many cases, no, it's like a couple were together, they split up and the woman got custody. The dad wasn't trying to shirk his responsibilities. Just the bias of the court system. You know? You'd see a lot more single dads if the courts weren't biased in favor of women. A lot more. Rye Bread says, single dad I am. Hey, big up Rye Bread. NJ says, single fathers actually raise better kids than single mums too. I suspect that's correct. I suspect that's correct. Yeah, and I've seen so many men broken because of spiteful exes who use their kids to hurt them. That's a horrible thing. I've seen that so many times over the years. We got Glum Coyote. He says, don't you think couple is sank? I'm not sure what word that is, but he says, I'm struggling to read this comment. Big up Glum Coyote. I think couple is... Did you mean to say extinct? David Gold says, Tupac made a whole song for his crackhead mother. Yeah, you know, that is particularly problematic. In inner city communities, you know? A lot of these young boys grow up and they've got Stockholm syndrome. A lot of them have actually got abusive mothers, but they end up with Stockholm syndrome for their mum. You know, it's very disturbing. I mean, just look at I Show Speed's mum. Any of you guys seen I Show Speed's mum? Dear, oh dear, oh dear. I mean, even Terence Crawford's mum, you know? He's got the forgiveness of his heart, the forgiveness in his heart of Jesus Christ. The way his mom did him growing up. He's a very compassionate person to forgive her, I tell you that. Dads don't get that same kind of compassion. Yeah? If a dad don't treat the kid right growing up, that kid will lock dad off for life. And the mom will ensure that that happens. But when the mom is abusive and bad, see how the son forgives the mom? Oh, forgive your mom. But the dad never get that kind of forgiveness there. The kids will hate the dad for his whole life. No matter what he tries to do later on, he'll just be hated for their whole life. They'll just lock him off completely. I mean, Fabio Wardley's dad. It's acting like he's locked his dad off for life. Crazy. We got Ben Oldham for the super chat. He says, I have 2 kids with my wife. I think children need their mother for the first 6 or 7 years of their life. And after that, the father must take over. Fathers generally tend to be more rational and wise. We got Ben Oldham for the super chat. Well, I recently rewatched a classic old hood movie, the classic old hood movie, Boys in the Hood. And in that movie, of course, it's starring Cuba Gooding Jr. His dad is played by Lawrence Fishburne. And what you see in that movie is Cuba Gooding Jr. being raised by his mum until he's about maybe 6 or 7, and then sent to go live with his dad. And I think the mum says, I can't teach you how to be a man. Only your dad can do that. Words to that effect. And his dad does exactly that. He teaches him how to be a man. And just to spoil it, he lives happily ever after, despite a lot of very tough challenges in that environment. Lucas says, what happened with Speed's mum? She was just very dismissive of what he was trying to do, very disrespectful, lacked love for, didn't really display love and all that kind. His dad was very supportive, but his mum was not supportive, and she was kind of abusive. But as soon as he got rich, oh, now she's on the grave. Oh, that's my son. It's so wild. But it's not like dads don't do that too, because, I mean, I remember, then again, you don't know what the relationship was like with the mom. Maybe she poisoned the kids against the dad, and that's why the dad wasn't in it. You don't know what happened, but yeah, there are some dads who are just straight up absentee dads. There's no one keeping them away from their kids. They just decide to run away. That happens. But when that happens, the dad is never let back in. Do you know what I mean? Unless the dad's rich or something, and then the kid's like, okay, I can benefit from letting the rich dad in. The dad is never let back in. He's never forgiven. But when mums do that, they're all nearly always forgiven. Ain't that something? But when the dad does it, oh no, he's just an outcast for life. Goozy says Cuba was Diddy's mate. Cuba's a weird guy. In real life, he's a weird guy. Ben Oldham says she kicked him out. Damn. Kicked I Show Speed out. But now that he's blown up and he's a millionaire, that's my boy, that's my son. Wild. And I Show Speed, as is typical, has forgiven her, taken her back in. I love her. Just like Terence Crawford did with his mum. After she used to ridicule him all the time, tell him he'll never be anything. That's what Crawford's mum used to do to him growing up. Constantly tell him you're not going to be anything in life. You're going nowhere. I mean, what? I've never understood parents like that, who constantly ridicule their kids. And to me, it's so bizarre. And it's not only women that do that. Obviously, there are men that do that. I don't understand it. I don't understand people who treat their kids like that. You're going to give your kids all sorts of psychological problems and complexes and all that kind of stuff, talking to them like that. What's wrong with you? Atavistic Intellect says, I think it's foul when a single mother tries to destroy her son as revenge against the father. Horrible stuff. Yep, and that goes on. Chainsaw X says they call it character building. Indeed, that's the way they try and gaslight it and spin it as if. Animal Beat says, happening in the behind the scenes of Boys in the Hood, the mom tries to come back in his life and is talking crazy. Yeah, I saw that deleted scene just the other day, actually. I saw that deleted scene. Where the mom's made some money and she's living in some nice part of town. And she's asking Trey to come live with her again. And he's like, nah, I'm cool living with dad. And the mom's getting all irate and upset about it. Yeah. Afro Jam says, my mom was like that, and now she tried to reel it back as an old woman. And no, I don't think I saw the behind the scenes for Poetic Justice. Plum Coyote says, I think the current ruling order made marginality impossible. It is a tragedy. Afro Jam says, my dad was a super negative person, so it was either. Stuck between a rock and a hard place by the sounds of it. Ben Odom says it creates insecurity. You still see it in Terence Crawford today. He's always seconds away from challenging someone competitively. You know, I've told this story before, but I was friends with this Nigerian girl from Northwest London. To bait myself up a little bit, specifically from Chalk Hill Estate in Wembley. I knew this Nigerian girl from up there. Big up 404 Vibes Not Found. He says, big up Hatman. My baby mum put another man on the birth certificate, but I went to court and got joint custody. Now I have my daughter half the week. Dads can win too. There's one story with, I guess, somewhat of a happy ending. Big up 404 Vibes Not Found. Much appreciated for the super chat. Big up, but yeah, I knew this Nigerian girl from Chalk Hill back in the days. And she had two younger brothers. And the younger of the two brothers, by the age of like 5 or 6, he was unbelievably confident. You know, one of them kids who's confident even around adults? Because normally kids are shy around adults, right? But this young boy was like really confident and self-assured around adults. And I found this curious. I was like, why is he like that? Because the older brother was nothing like, the older brother was like a typical kid, kind of shy around adults and unsure of himself generally. Whereas the younger brother had all this confidence and he was already like a computer whiz when he was like 5 or 6 years old on laptops and doing it. I was like, wow. And then the girl explained to me that their auntie, who wasn't really an auntie, but it was some kind of friend of the family that lived with them, who was, I think at the time in her mid-20s, she took a liking to the younger brother. And she would basically boost his self-esteem every day with, you know, affirmations, telling him how smart he is, telling him how great he is, just bigging him up constantly, every day. And I was like, wow. You see, when kids are young, their minds are so malleable. You can mold the personality to a large extent at that age, you know? And I was like, wow, what a profound effect. This isn't even a family member, right? Just a friend of the family living with them, I guess, acting as their housemaid or something in Chalk Hill. Imagine that. People were housemaids in Chalk Hill. But yeah, she had a profound impact on the molding of that young boy. And that always stuck with me. I'll never forget it. It always stuck with me. Like, wow, all you have to do is just give them confidence when they're young, speak confidence into them, and you can literally set their life on a totally different trajectory. A totally different trajectory. You speak confidence, you speak life, you speak ambition, you speak self-esteem into them. And this is especially important in this day and age for young boys, because girls are going to get praised regardless whether you do or not, right? Especially if they're pretty. But boys, they're not going to get that. You can give them so much of an advantage in life if you instill confidence into them young. You can give them such a tremendous advantage and put them on a much better trajectory. Yes, Chalk Hill Estate did used to be very rough. That's right. It did used to be very rough. And just down the road from Chalk Hill, you had Press Road, which also used to be very rough. Afro Jam says, only some old estates in Kilburn still run down. Is South Kilburn Estate still standing? The old big grey tower blocks? Is that still there? Okay, Glum Coyote says, I meant marginality, living an alternative fringe lifestyle. Afro Jam says, Chalk Hill is still not great, but they have improved massively. Yeah, they knocked down all the big tower blocks, haven't they? It's the same as Stonebridge. They knocked down all the big tower blocks. It's all low rises now. But is South Kilburn still the big tower blocks, or is it low rise? Afro Jam says some of it. Okay. Some people will use the example of Clarissa Shields or Terence Crawford, who both, Clarissa Shields, as much as we criticize her here, she had a very, very troubled upbringing. Very troubled. Okay? And some people, in a very gaslighty kind of way, will say, oh, see, look, that tough love sent her on this trajectory to become a great boxer, and the same with Terence Crawford. What they don't tell you is the majority of people who receive that so-called tough love, it's not tough love, it's abuse. The majority of people who receive that don't end up as successful. They end up with mental health problems, substance abuse problems, right? They don't go that trajectory. It's only the people with a very special constitution that can take that kind of harsh upbringing and turn it into something positive. The majority of people who have that kind of upbringing, they don't manage to do that. It goes in the very opposite direction. So all that gas, oh yeah, Crawford's mum helped him. No. That wasn't any kind of positive thing she was trying to do there. Oh wow, Ben Odom says he was born in Chalk Hill in 1979. We got the Chalk Hill gang. Iron Protagonist, big up for the super chat. He says, speaking big facts tonight. Much respect to High Road Protagonist. Shady says the majority of people are mediocre regardless of upbringing. Yeah, the majority of people are headed for on a mediocre trajectory regardless of upbringing, yes. But if they suffer a really tough upbringing, the likelihood of them having a bad trajectory downwards is much higher. If they have a good upbringing where they're encouraged and they have not just loving parents, but parents that are smart and, tactically astute in terms of how they're going to raise the kids and give them the best opportunities, those kind of upbringings tend to yield better results, generally. Ocean Blue says it turned Shields into a misandrist for sure. Yeah, it did. And this is why I'm one of the few people that shows any compassion towards Clarissa Shields, right? Because as obnoxious as she is, and she is obnoxious, she had a horrible upbringing, bro. And that's why I don't want to see her allowed to fight a man and get weighed in. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see that. Glum Coyote says, don't you think forming a couple has become a sort of praised achievement, whereas solitude is seen as a horrendous path to take? Yes, but most human beings are wired to seek out a partner, a life partner. Most human beings are wired that way. And because most human beings are wired that way and they're actively trying to do that, when they get it, it's seen as a success. Whereas when you have someone that's single, especially in middle age and old age, they're looked at as a failure because the assumption is that they tried to find a life partner and they failed. Although, but of course, there are some people who are happy being single forever. But they're a small minority. I don't think there's a very large percentage of people that actually enjoy being single for life. I don't think so. Okay, Denny says it's confirmed that Joshua and White will be fighting next. Plum Coyote says sometimes freeing myself from some relationships was an actual blessing. That can definitely be the case. But do you want to be permanently single? Do you know what I mean? Like, how many people actually want to be permanently single? It's got to be a small minority, right? Jay Manchester says Rolly Romero will KO her in a fight. Crazy how her team haven't told her that. Well, she's very troubled. You know, one of the clear indications of how troubled Clarissa Shields is she put up a tweet, I think it was, a few years ago, where she was basically lamenting the fact that she doesn't have a husband and kids and all that kind of stuff. She said, I just want to have a husband and kids and settle down and do the whole nine. And I'm like, hang on, you are a female fighter. You are doing something that is literally the most masculine thing in the world to do. And you're wondering why. You don't have, the husband and the kids in the home where you're baking cookies. I mean, what? That shouldn't be hard to figure out. That shouldn't be hard to figure out. Well, you know what they say, when it comes to finding a life partner, it's not about finding the perfect person. It's about finding the person whose crazy matches your crazy. The person who's as equally damaged as you are. And, going from there. And maybe Clarissa Shields has found that in Papoose, because he is a weird guy. That's for sure. So maybe if they found the right fit, I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, I heard about that. The box says, I remember when she called into a show to defend herself, pretending to be someone else. I did hear about that still. Tried to put a different voice on, and that's crazy. And that also shows how unhinged she is. Do you know what I mean? That shows how troubled she is. She is really troubled. Very, very. Clarissa Shields has got the biggest chip on her shoulder of anyone in boxing by far. The chip that she has on her shoulder is bigger than Mount Everest, bro. It's enormous. Plum Coyote says, I don't, but struggled with the idea. I was many times elated by the feeling of solitude. The lack of it brought me anxiety and claustrophobia. Do I think Papoose is an all-time great rapper? Hell no. Hell no. Not even in the conversation. Hell no. Papoose? No. Papoose, what is Papoose? He was a mixtape rapper. That's it. That's his legacy. I'm not saying it's a terrible legacy, better than most rappers' legacies, right? But that's what Papoose, he was a mixtape rapper. That's the start and the end of it. David Gold says, being single but having multiple sexual partners isn't too bad. Yeah, but most men don't have the opportunity to have that. For the ones who do, it's all good. All women have the opportunity to do that, but most men in the modern West, they don't have the opportunity to do that. Do I think he's at least nice? He's all right. Pap was all right. I mean, one of the things about Papoose is that his delivery was so aggressive and so confident that it tricked people into thinking his bars were better than they actually were. Do you know what I mean? He had some good bars, but if he didn't deliver them so confidently and so aggressively and forcefully, if they were said in a more calm voice, they don't sound so great. He's all right. Did I hear Papoose' 50 Cent diss? No, I didn't. I heard T.I.'s 50 Cent diss. I thought he was pretty good. Not even gonna lie. I thought T.I.'s 50 Cent diss was low-key fire. Activistic Intellect says, anyone else find it odd that Terry Harper goes out with some old wrinkled... That's common. And that's why I always tell guys, you know, if you start dating a young lady and you find that her best friend is like some woman who's a decade or more older than her, that should raise eyebrows, bro. Because in a lot of cases, that's not just a friendship. I'm telling you. Right? When you see a girl in her 20s and her best friend is like a 45-year-old woman, bro, that's not a normal friendship. Fight Sport Talk says, having close friends 10 years older than you in general is kind of weird. Well, no, I don't think it's weird for men. I mean, it can be, but I don't think it's as weird. In my experience. And also it depends on how old the man is. If the man is like 25 and his best friend is 45, yeah, that's weird. But if the man is 35 and his best friend is 50, it's not as weird. Do you know what I mean? Till this day says people are saying 50 is about to take his first L with a T.I. diss. T.I. diss came out of nowhere, bro. I was kind of pleasantly surprised by it. I was like, you know what? T.I. actually spits low-key fire. Who'd have thought it? At this age, do you know what I mean? How old is T.I.? He must be in his way up there in his 40s. There you go, KS. Old lady turned her out. Yeah. Your 28-year-old girlfriend is not supposed to have a 45-year-old female best friend. Bro, that's... you know? There's something going on there. Plum Coyote says, the date I met my partner was the lowest form of wooing, and she was as well on her baddest performance. Well, you know, sometimes people try to impress too much on a date. And if you actually are going to get along and be together long term, it's often the case that it's a very informal date. A walk in the park, a coffee, nothing too fancy. If you have to put on a big performance, once the person gets to know the real you, they might not stick around. And in fact, right, the very thing I'm talking about is actually in a movie, the original version, not the remake, from back in the days, The Color Purple. That was a huge feminist propaganda movie, by the way. But in The Color Purple, Whoopi Goldberg's character gets turned out by some older chick. Any of you guys remember that movie? That is based on what happens in real life, bro. I'm telling you, see, one of these chicks is like 25 and her best friend is like some 45-year-old divorcee. Nah, bro. Something is going on there. Atavistic Intellect says, I think if you set the bar too high with a lot of women to begin with, they'll keep expecting a higher and higher bar to be set. That's a whole fact. That's why a lot of guys advise, don't lead with your wallet. Because if you lead with your wallet, you've set a precedent, haven't you? For what they expect to follow. There's a meme that I always remember from back in the days. And it said, a woman who asks for nothing deserves to have everything. A woman who asks for nothing deserves to have everything. David Gold says, I think it's beneficial for a man to have friends who are significantly older than him. I agree. Especially when it comes to business, career, making money. There's so much you can learn from older men, so much wisdom that can help you in a very tangible way on your journey as a man. Whereas for a woman, that older woman ain't gonna help her. She's not. When you got a 28-year-old woman and her best friend's 45 and she's a divorcee, oh, she ain't helping nothing. All she's trying to ensure is that the 28-year-old never settles down with a man because misery needs company. That's all she's trying to ensure. Poisoning her mind. No, don't take this from a man. Don't take. Oh yeah. All that. Till this day says, two movies I vowed never to watch were The Color Purple and Precious. I've never seen Precious, but I have seen The Color Purple, the original. The Steven Spielberg, Danny Glover, Whoopi Goldberg, Oprah Winfrey original. You know, one of the things that as a younger guy, you appreciate about older guys is their sense of humor. Men tend to get funnier as they get older. I mean, obviously when they become geriatric, people are no longer laughing with them, but at them. But generally, guys individuate more as they get older and they get funnier, you know? They got all sorts of funny stories and anecdotes and all that kind of stuff, funny experiences and stories. Yeah. And they just crack you up. You know, Apex Bossman, he says, so is Fury Joshua signed then? I'm late to the stream, what's going on? So Gareth A. Davies, in this video here, you'll see on the TalkSport Boxing YouTube channel, first of all said that the fight is signed. It's been quietly signed in the background between AJ and Partridge. But then when he was challenged by Adam Cattrall, he said, well, not signed, it's been agreed. Make it out what you will. He says it's been agreed in the background. He says he has it on good authority, a very good source, very reliable. He says it's going to be on Netflix, which he's been constantly reiterating over the past few weeks. So make it out what you will. Do we believe Gad? Do we think he's to be trusted, to be relied upon with this claim? Ben Oldham says, Color Purple scarred me. Whoopi spitting in the drink and stirring it. You know, the Color Purple was one of the most egregious pieces of feminist propaganda, weaponized feminist propaganda to ever have been targeted at the Black American community. You know, it made out as though the previous generations were basically full of the Danny Glovers of the world, who were these horrible, abusive, you know, black men that, I mean, it's just total egregious propaganda. Did such men exist? Yes. Was it the norm? Absolutely not. Not even close. You know, I was raised in a very conservative, kind of traditional family, right? Parents, aunties, uncles, grandparents, all married for life. And there was literally zero instances regarding my parents, aunties, uncles of domestic violence. Zero. None. And all these women were housewives. And there was no domestic violence. In fact, there was an incident in the neighborhood where my parents live, back home in my country of origin, where this guy who lived just down the road, it was a very tight-knit community, was punching up his wife. And his wife was a woman who my dad went to school with, right? So he knew her character. And so my dad and his best friend who lives next door to him went round to the guy's house. And they told him in no uncertain terms, this is going to stop. And it stopped. All right? And again, my dad and his best friend, they got housewives at home. My aunties and uncles, all traditional families, you know? The man, the protector, provided the woman, the housewife. All of this narrative that is like, oh, you know, back in the old traditional days, it was just ubiquitous for, you know, husbands to be treating the wives like heavy bags, giving them Tyson uppercuts. I mean, just nonsense, man. It's always been in most cultures. I'm not saying all cultures. There might be some odd cultures here and there where it was the norm, but it's always been the case in most cultures that it's a minority of relationships that end up like that. Maybe it's a disturbingly high minority to some people, right? But it's still a minority. It's not like most relationships are like that. Most traditional marriages are like that. That's cap. That's straight cap. But that's what the Color Purple was designed to mislead people on. You know, just dope business. Designed to poison the minds, you know? Demonize men. Katie versus the world says, genuinely, Hatman, can I have advice to overcoming my fear of talking to women? It's very hard, bro. Obviously, it's going to help if you can find a shy woman. You know, if you're nervous, talking to a shy woman is easier because they're less likely, even if they do reject you, they're less likely to reject you harshly. And shy women might be more receptive if they sense that you're also nervous or shy. You know? Where do you find shy women? Big up East Midlands Fight Fan. Big up KD versus the World. Mad Preacher says, meh. Fury versus Tyson. I guess you mean to say Fury versus Joshua. Seems to be late now. Sorry, just joined. Fernie G says, talk to them as if you don't want anything from them. That's a great bit of advice right there. In fact, don't even have any intentions beyond just being friendly. Remove that pressure from the equation, because the pressure comes from the expectation of what you want this to be. If you just approach it genuinely in your heart and in your mind as just a friendly conversation, and you might never talk to the person again, just hi, you know, just as if you were talking to the milkman or talking to the, but even have milkman anymore, the postman. Start there with no expectations. Just being out in the world. And women are very observant. When they see you interacting with other people, they'll notice you. When they see a guy who doesn't interact with other people, they're less likely to pay attention to you. Women are always clocking for a man that has good social skills. Yeah? So if you're interacting with other people, everyday people, you know, as you go about your daily business, you're more likely to draw the attention of a woman. So we should talk about this actually, because according to Gareth A. Davies, Partridge, incredibly, I should have spoken about this way earlier on in the stream. According to Gareth A. Davies, Partridge actually said that he also, like Usyk, has a 3-fight plan. His 3-fight plan, I hope that Gareth A. Davies is being honest or accurate in this, but he says Partridge's 3-fight plan is Makhmudov, AJ, and then Usyk a third time. East Midlands Fight Fan says, I think Fury will annihilate him, to be fair. Truth Channel says, wouldn't have a clue how to chat up a woman, no lie. Had very long relationship and time moved on and confidence is zero. And this is another one of the issues that men encounter in the modern world, is that women are not as receptive to being chatted up anymore, either in person or online. In the modern West, they're not as receptive to being chatted up. And again, there's this weird gaslighty thing where you see these women being interviewed sometimes in videos on social media saying, I don't understand why men don't approach me. And then they ask about the number of men they've rejected and why they rejected them. And the answer is in their answer. Like the lack of self-awareness that some of these people have is just astonishing. But, you know, back in the 90s, when I was coming up into manhood, this is long before social media, women were very receptive to being approached. I mean, they didn't just want to be approached by anybody, but because they didn't have access to millions of men via social media, they were less quick to be hostile towards you, because the only approaches they would get were in person. There was no Instagram. There was no Facebook. There was no Tinder, right? So women were far more limited in terms of the men that they would actually get an opportunity to date back then. And because of that, they were far more receptive to being approached. Social media changed the game. Dating apps changed the game for the worst. Exactly as Kaya says. Why didn't men approach me? What it actually means is, why didn't the men I find attractive approach me? She doesn't count the others. Yeah, there you go. That's exactly right. Rye Bread is taking Fury on points over Makhmadov. Depends on the version of Fury that we get. Fury anywhere close to his best stops Makhmadov. Makhmadov is so limited. But this current version of Fury, could it go the distance? Maybe. Why are the insects in hot countries so aggressive? Now, the flies here in Africa, I'm sat in the bedroom here doing this stream, and the flies in there are trying to make me look like one of those starving kids from a UNICEF advert. Landing on my face every 2 seconds. You know them ones. Or is it Oxfam? UNICEF Ox? I don't know. Them old charity adverts for the starving African kid with the flies in the face. The flies here just like to land on your face. I don't know what it is. It's weird. East Midlands Fight Fan says Anderson will be cannon fodder for Moses. That's why he's signed. Okay. Michael says, I don't know about that. Fury didn't stop Pianetta and Wallin. Makhmadov is not worse than them. I would argue that Makhmadov is less durable than Wallin. I don't know about Pianetta though, but Partridge was very weak in those fights because he was coming off the back of an enormous amount of weight loss. So he wasn't going to stop him because he was so weak. He was even weak in the first Wilder fight. Even though this is several years on from that, he's much physically stronger now than he was in those comeback fights, for my money. He was so weak against those. That's one of the few occasions when his dad, Johnny Partridge, actually said something true. He said his son was weak as a kitten against Wilder in the first fight, and he really was. So there's that, and there's also the fact that I think Wallin is more durable than Makhmadov anyway. You go, Arco, how's the toe doing today? It's a lot better. It's still painful, it's still swollen, but not as painful, not as swollen as the day that it happened. I actually managed to go for my jog today. Couple laps round the block. It was probably about what? 2 and a bit miles. Nothing too crazy. Yeah, I'm David Hay with my toe. That's right. Stubbed my toe. Toe injuries are no joke. Can't push off the back foot to land the right hand. Fernie says, did Partridge not balloon up this time? Not to the extent that he did when he was banned. Because when he was banned, I think he ballooned up to, what was it, over 400 pounds? It was something crazy. He was huge. You know when he got stripped of his belts and couldn't box? Yeah, he ballooned up, must have been close to 400 pounds. It was massive. And he had to lose all of that weight and then get in and fight Pianetta, Sefer Safiri. Actually, tell a lie. I was wrong about one of the things I said. He wasn't drained against Otto Wallin. He was drained against Sefer Safiri and Pianetta. Let me correct myself. I got the order mixed up there. He fought Wallin later on, after the first Wilder fight. He fought Tom Schwartz, then he fought Wallin. He wasn't drained in that fight. He wasn't. But as I said, I think Wallin is more durable than Makhmudov anyway. Atavistic Intellect says, Hatman, how much better was the 90s for dating and dealing with Western women? A lot better. Again, social media and dating apps changed the game for men for the worst. I lived through the whole thing, right? I was dating in the 90s, I was dating in the early 2000s, and then I was dating in the social media dating apps era as well. So I've seen all the different eras. I've seen the change. It was a lot better. Women were more receptive, especially if you were a good-looking guy. A lot of really pretty girls didn't get approached that much. Unless it was like yardies and stuff like that. Because a lot of guys were like, damn, she's too pretty, I feel nervous. Do you know what I mean? Especially as a teenager. So when they got approached by like a good-looking guy, they'd be so happy. They'd be so excited that a good-looking guy approached. It was a totally different time. Whereas today, to them, a good-looking guy doesn't mean anything. But where's your Porsche? Can you fly me out to Dubai? I got rent due. Pay that. Well, they don't want to get flown out to Dubai now, but you know what I mean? Before the current situation. Because now they've got access to millions of men. Inboxes are flooded every day, especially if she's good looking. It's just, the game has totally changed. Before social media, way better. The attitudes weren't as crazy. I've always been a fairly good-looking guy, but I approached certain girls. I remember going to a grime rave called Dirty Canvas, which used to be somewhere in central London there, right on the Thames. I forget the name of the venue. And there was this girl there who I managed to get with, who was like, you know, it's not often that I would be surprised, do you know what I mean? Because the girl was so hot, and I was like, damn. But on that occasion, I was like, wow, I actually managed to get the digits. That's crazy. But that was a lot more of a, you know, achievable thing back then. She didn't come with any weird attitude. She came across as like real normal. Yeah, what is going on with Johnny Bosch right now? Does anyone care? Johnny Bosch thought he was going to get the fight against Jamie Shakiva for the British heavyweight title, but that's obviously Richard Riakporhe now getting that opportunity. Does Johnny Bosch have something else lined up? Tess says, did she fall for your boxing tapes? Oh no, this was long before the boxing tapes. I really didn't get to talk to anyone about boxing outside of the boxing gym and my younger brother who also boxed until I started my first YouTube channel. Boxing was such a niche sport, even in Britain back then, there was no one to talk to about boxing. They didn't even bother to bring it up with a woman. And this was many years before my first YouTube channel. Big up Ben Oldham for the super chat. He says, Northern girls will restore your confidence, young men. I recommend North Wales, still traditional, ridiculously friendly, also great, safe places, a place to raise kids. You know, it really depends on where in the north. I'm not being funny, but when you go to places like Manchester, you might say the women are more approachable, but they're kind of rough. And I don't necessarily mean rough looking. I just mean in their like demeanor and attitude, and it's just, huh? They're not the most feminine in places like Manchester, bro. They're kind of rough. But North Wales, I've never been to North Wales, I don't think anyway. So I'll take your word for it. Big up Ben Oldham. There you go, young men. Check out North Wales. Indeed, Telstar. Fetched up the hard way. Any of you guys remember Keith Lemon, his Mel B, that grotesque Mel B character that he did? That is what a lot of the women in Manchester are like, bro. I'm not even gonna lie. You know the way the grotesque Mel B character behaved? The Keith Lemon Mel B one? Yeah, a lot of women in Manchester are literally like that. They talk like that. It's wild, bro. It's wild. East Midlands Fight Fan says, Leeds is the same. Indeed, drink you under the table, beat you in an arm wrestle, and take you out on the cobbles. Dr. Wu says, Hatman makes northern girls sound like sailors. The last time I went to Manchester, I got a friend who lives in Middleton. And yeah, the girls around there, bro, like just walking around the shopping center and the supermarket. I was like, damn, these girls are rough. They are like sailors, bro. They talk like, swear like sailors and drink like them and everything. Fernie G says, back in the day, women 7s and 8s in terms of attractiveness got the most attention because all the guys thought they could pull that caliber of woman and weren't intimidated by them. That's a whole fact. The 9s and 10s, incredibly The 9s and 10s, a lot of the time, were the most grateful to be approached because most guys were too scared. They were too shook to approach them. So when you did approach them, if you're an attractive guy, you'd be amazed by how receptive they were back in the days. Like the girl that I met at Dirty Canvas, at that grime rave. I was kind of shocked at how receptive she was because of how beautiful she was. I was like, damn. You know, one of them ones where I was just like trying my luck, thinking, probably gonna get rejected here. But when she was so receptive and friendly, I was like, whoa. The way she looks, whoa. That's crazy. Atavistic Intellect says, in Scotland, the nicest women are from very small towns, either right up north or right down south of Scotland, like, is it Stanera? I'm not sure what that is. But Glasgow birds are just so masculine, man. Oh, wow. Ben Odom says, Beyonce said the same thing. Nobody used to approach her. Yeah. And Beyonce was that chick back in the days. My generation. I think Beyonce's like a couple of years younger than me. And generally, here's another thing. Generally, the only guys that would approach those kind of girls would be bad boys, street guys. And some of those kind of girls liked bad boys, but some of them didn't. Who remembers Rita suing Bob too, says Dr. Wu. Yeah, I remember that weird film. That was a very weird film, bro. In fact, that film is like Nancy by today's standards, isn't it? Even though the actor and the actresses were well above the age limit. I mean, they were women way into their 20s, maybe late 20s, playing teenagers, which is kind of weird in itself. I think, anyway, from what I remember. Correct me if I'm wrong. But the age they were supposed to be in the movie, it was like some Nancy kind of business going on there. Big up Trolls Are Bad. Glad you're enjoying the stream. I'm in my flow tonight. Yeah, Lennox Lewis was tagged with the rainbow thing for years. I can't say it was inappropriate, you know, because I heard a lot of stories. I mean, a lot of stories, wild stuff. So I wouldn't dismiss it personally. East Midlands Fight Fan says, yes, my dad was convinced on it. Now, I'm going to throw another cliche at you, but there's some truth to it. Men who are unusually attached, even into adulthood, and very, very close to their mothers. Now, in some cultures, that's very normal. I want to say in a lot of communities, that's kind of weird. And it's more common with certain guys who have got a secret. And they don't want to tell anybody about the secret. But Mumsy knows about the secret. So when you see them kind of guys who are way too close with Mumsy, I mean, way too close, it's like they're, I mean, Mumsy's the only one that knows their secret. And that's why they're so, keeping her so close. And Lennox Lewis was always very close with Mumsy, like crazy close. That's not the only reason, by the way, which, you know, why I think there might be some credence to the rumors, but it's an additional thing. Now, there are some guys who are real close to Mumsy that I don't suspect, like Holyfield. Holyfield don't give me them kind of zesty vibes. In fact, Holyfield is a Gallus, you know? How many baby mums has Holyfield got? How many kids has he got? Not that that means, you know what I mean? Because that Yusuf Mack guy's got a load of kids. And look at him. Anyone remember Yusuf Mack? Oh my God. Remember that bizarre story? That tall tale that he tried to tell after he got caught? Yo, that was wild. It's like the tallest tale I ever heard in my life. He said he was lured to a studio, drugged, and then woke up on the train with some money in his pocket a couple hours later. And then when the company threatened to sue him, that's when he came clean. Yeah, the Carl Froch opponent. That was such a weird episode. Riot Bread says Yusuf Mack likes the Diddy grease. That's a whole fact. But you know, if you've ever seen Yusuf Mack interviewed, zesty vibes, bro. You know what I mean? So like, if you ever saw him talk and his mannerisms and all that before that news even came out, it's not the biggest shock in the world. It's like Sean Porter. If something came out about Sean Porter in the future, would any of us be surprised? We know zest when we see it. And in fact, speaking of zest, Floyd Schofield's dad, even though he's apparently about that life, this, that, and the other, he's so zesty. Doesn't he give you zesty vibes the way he talks and everything? Mad zesty. Apparently he went to prison. Well, seems like the kind of guy who was dropping his soap in the shower on purpose, allegedly. That's true, Afro Jam. Porter is not a mama's boy, he's a daddy's boy, which is kind of the opposite of what you normally see with a zest monster. Ben Oldham says, Tony Blair in Clapham toilets. I was shocked. Did that happen? I don't think I ever heard about that. Dr. Wu says, I used to think Brooke was sus. Why did you only used to? Because if you've ever heard the infamous voice note, there can be no doubt East Midlands Fight Fan says Shakur is slightly zesty too. I haven't noticed that, but okay. It's a zesty era. It's a zesty era. Oh, wow. Is that right, Ben Oldham? Recently came out, apparently he was arrested for it back in the days. Wow. Okay, I'm not saying wow because it amazes me that he would do that. It's just wow that I've never heard of it before. Such a prominent figure. Russ B says, I don't agree about Porter. Okay. Definitely the vibes I get. Like, majorly from Porter. Have you ever seen Sean Porter with a woman? Isn't his dress sense a little flamboyant? The way he talks, isn't it a little sugary? Got some sugary moves. The Buck says he's married. Is he? I know he's a church boy. And that's actually, you know, no disrespect, but that's actually another telltale sign. Oh, yeah. If you know, you know. In America, in the black church, all them church boys, bro. I'm telling you, they use that as a cover. Yeah, they use that as a cover. Like, the black church in America is a zest fest. I'm just going to keep it up, keep it 100. It's a zest fest. So I remember when I was working in a security job years ago, and when I started at that job, you know, they usually have one person that takes you around and shows you the ropes, like on your first day. And so when I got there was this Indian guy, you know, British-born Indian guy, who took me around, you know, the building and showed me everything and all that kind of stuff. And he was as zesty as you could possibly imagine. All right, he was damn near a queen. So he took me around and showed me all the building and this and that and the procedures. And then he took me to one of the security offices where the other security guys were there. And then he started talking about his wife. I nearly spat my water out. I was like, what? Wife? You know them ones. I was like, what? Wife? No. and talking about the big age gaps, right? That guy, that Indian guy, his best friend at work, and that Indian guy at the time was in his early 30s. His best friend at work was this Irish guy who was in his 60s, okay? And this Irish guy was an out of the closet guy. But he was kind of one of them cool, you know, old school rainbows who wasn't in your face about it. You know, it wasn't like this big performance. They were like a discreet I mean, you could tell he was very, you know, effeminate. But it wasn't like this big performance about it. He did it tastefully. So it's like old queen, Irish queen, was like the best friend of the Indian guy, half his age, who was married. And they stuck together at that workplace like they were joined at the hip. Literally. They took lunch breaks at the same time. He would bring the Irish guy to work in his car every day with him. They would leave at the same. You'd think they were married. And the Indian guy was married with kids. He had a wife. When he told me he was married on day one, I was like, whoa. Plot twist. I weren't expecting that. Plot twist. Speaking of these matters, one of the wildest things that I've heard over the past few weeks, or seen over the past few weeks, was Buju Banton's son. That is wild. Anyone see the video of Buju Banton's son? Buju. Oh my God. Are Buju's locks falling out? Or man's locks must have fallen out overnight when you see that video there. My days. He went bald overnight, bro. Locks fell out. Oh, Buju. Yeah. But that's the first time I've ever seen Buju's son. The impression I get, truth be told, listening to the Buju's son talk, is that he's autistic. That's the impression I get. And the reason I make a point of saying that is it's a well-known fact that not all autistic people, but there is a disproportionately high number of autistic people who are asexual. And because of the fact that a disproportionately high number of them are asexual, it means that they are very suggestible. Yeah, they're very suggestible to be steered one way or the other because they don't have a really strong sense of their sexuality. And to me, he comes across, Buju's son, like he's autistic. Afro Jam says a good number of dancehall artists' relatives are fruity. Well, yeah, I mean, one of the things about old school dancehall, maybe not so much now, but a lot of them old school dancehall men were very flamboyant, weren't they? It did make you wonder. Beanie Man tying a scarf around his neck, tying up his shirt front and all that kind of weird stuff. Elephant Man was very flamboyant. You do wonder about these guys. Have I seen Ninja Man's son? No, I haven't. Is there something off key about him? That'd be wild. Then again, nothing is more wild than Buju's son saying what he said. Indeed, which one? Enough of these dancehall man have got Whole heap of kids. Oh, for real? Yeesh. I've got my own theories as to why this is happening. I'll save that for Patreon. I haven't seen Ghostface's son, but I've heard about him, and yeah, wild. It's like Hassan Campbell's son. Hassan Campbell's got a Transformer son. Wild. Nah, not for the industry. In society in general, I think there's an increase in it. And I think it's due to chemical influence. I'll just say that. Truth Channel says J.A. dancehall lyric artist sons come back to haunt them. It's like I remember a Chris Rock stand-up back in the days where Chris Rock was saying it makes no sense to hate any group because whoever you hate or whatever you hate is going to end up in your family. You hate black people, your daughter's going to bring home Pookie and Ray Ray. You hate Puerto Ricans, she's going to bring back Living a Vida Loca, even though he's zesty, but you know. You hate rainbows, you're going to have a rainbow son. Anyone remember that Chris Rock stand-up joke? Yeah, that's right. Magic Johnson does. That's correct. What? Papoose son is well? Nah, bro. Someone says there's something in the water. There might be something in the water, but I think it goes way beyond the water. I think it starts. I won't say too much, but yeah. From infancy, there's something chemical influence there. Oh, that's my opinion. East Midlands Fight Fan says, all I need to hear now is Sizzler's son is zesty. Capleton's son. Can you imagine? What a weird time we live in. Guzzi wants to know about Shabba Rank's son. Shabba. Well, it's a full spectrum attack, isn't it? It's not only one thing. There are multiple things trying to steer them down a particular path. But personally, I think it's the biggest influence is chemical. That's my opinion. East Midlands Fight Fan says, who do I think AJ will return against? Well, people are saying it's Dylan White and it's signed and sealed and delivered. So, I don't know. I'll have to do an internet search to see if that's true, but that's what some people are claiming. If it is Dylan White, people are going to be disappointed, but they should understand that it's just a glorified run out. You know? That's what it's supposed to be. I still think even that isn't worth the risk if AJ's looking to fight Partridge, because although Dillian Whyte is absolutely shot to pieces, he still has a fighting spirit in him, you know? And as long as he has a fighting spirit and he can throw a left hook, there's some danger there. Galaxy Edit says, no, not a risk for AJ at all. I mean, I'd pick AJ to win, but he's just so vulnerable now. I don't see why you'd even put him in with a puncher. If you're going to do the Fury cash out, why even put him in with a puncher? I don't see the reason. Just put him in with someone who can't punch. Let him win. Then he goes on to cash out against Partridge. Castle says he's still willing to not stick to the script too. Dillian will always be wild. Guzzi says Dillian don't like AJ, he'll be up for it. And apparently, talking about, was it toes or feet? Someone said that there were people, quote unquote, confirming that Dillian Whyte had a broken toe or a broken foot or something for the Atama fight. Yeah, I remember that. That was a strange thing. Atavistic Intellect says, did Wilder actually say he wanted to be pregnant? Yeah, he did, I think, say something like that. Very strange. Mark Sterling says, after the manner of the Dubois defeat, you can't trust AJ. He looked so nervous in that fight. Completely agree. He was asking for the crowd to pray for him at the weigh-in. What's that all about? An experienced vet, two-time heavyweight champ, going up against a less experienced guy. He's talking about pray for me. What in the world was all that about? Pugilist King says, what's up, Hatman? Any advice on improving footwork? Obviously, you're going to need to get in the ring and practice your fundamentals, not crossing your feet, learning how to not only move back and forward, but also laterally without crossing your feet. Don't try and move around the ring too fast, okay? What you have to understand about boxing, from punching to footwork, head movement, is that it's not about, it should not be primarily a exercise in cardiovascular. You're trying to improve your technique. Once your technique is improved, then you can up the speed at which you do these things and incorporate some cardio into it. But you want to get your technique down first. So when you're trying to improve your footwork, do everything slow. Yeah? It might seem frustrating, it might seem boring to some people, but it's going to pay dividends. Do everything slow. You can watch yourself in the mirror. Most boxing gyms got mirrors. When you're in the ring, you're moving around, do everything slow. Work on the fundamentals of the footwork. And when you do it enough times, hundreds or thousands of times, it'll become second nature. You won't even have to think about it. But don't jump in the ring and start moving around all over the place, because then you're not going to refine your footwork to the extent that it needs to be refined. Yeah? Hopping around all over the place like a damn grasshopper. Don't do that. Don't do that. Yeah? Get your technique solid first, and then you can start moving around all over the place. Also, when it comes to throwing the right hand or the backhand, if you're a southpaw, the left hand, get your balance right, bend your knees slightly, and when you extend that straight right or straight left, depending if you're southpaw or orthodox, make sure the ball of your rear foot is on the canvas and your heel is off the canvas. You'll get much better rotation, much better kinetic chain, more power, more snap on the backhand. Practice throwing punches with full power, shadow boxing. That will help your balance, which also is part of the footwork, obviously. Yeah? It's no good developing your footwork, but then when you're in the ring and you start throwing real punches with full force behind them, you're falling off balance. Yeah? Learn to throw shots with full speed, momentum, power while you're shadow boxing, because then you will naturally learn to compensate for the, how can I even describe it? You naturally learn how to compensate by sitting a little deeper in your stance, bending your knees a little bit more when you throw the shot, so that you don't fall off balance because of the velocity of the punch, if that makes sense. Yeah? When you're shadow boxing, make sure you're not throwing little pity-patty silly shots, but you're throwing real, proper power shots, and you're learning how to compensate for the imbalance that causes by sitting a bit deeper in your stance when you throw the shot and all that kind of thing. Incorporate that into your footwork drills. In the ring. Not on the hard road, but in the ring. On that canvas. East Midlands Fight Fan says, Dylan was avoided and now they're queuing up. Truth Channel says, wasn't it Muhammad Ali, Chris Eubank and Hagler who used to train by running backwards? He said it helped his balanced footwork and made moving around opponents feel easier. I may have heard that at some point. I guess he meant really jogging backwards rather than, full on running. But yeah, running, jogging, same thing. But I might have heard that at some point. When you mentioned it just then, though, it reminded me of some ridiculous thing that a friend of mine told me when I was a kid. It might have even been my older brother that told me. There was some ridiculous stuff they said about ninjas. This is back in the 1980s. And they told me in order to train and become, qualified or whatever as a ninja, you have to learn to run as fast backwards as you can run forwards. The things that kids believe. No. You have to learn to run as fast backwards as you can forwards. Like sprint the same speed backwards as forward. Okay. Yeah, right. Yeah, I'm sure it was a movie, Fernie G. I'm sure they must have said that in some kung fu movie. And, as little kids, they believed it. It sounds like the kind of thing that would have been in a kung fu movie. The training montage sequence where they're training up to be a ninja. Learn how to run as fast backwards as forwards. Lakvinder Singh says the Last Dragon movie. All right, peeps, let me shut this one down as I clear the frog from my throat. Get out of here, frog. Yeah, shut this one down. Big up everyone who locked in. It's been a great conversation. Banter. Good discussions. Rigorous debate. A robust debate. So yeah, I wanted to shout out everyone who joined the conversation. Special shout out to those who donated via Super Chat. They were Luca, James Clifford, Matt Borgerson, Glum Coyote, Copezilla, Ben Odom, Vibes Not Found, Hyro Protagonist. Big up, big up. Special shout out to you guys. Big up to everybody else. Until next time, take care, be good. And always remember, if no one else cares, Hatman cares. All right? So see you on the other side. I'm out.